2026 FIFA World Cup match. Argentina 3, Switzerland 1. From a mathematical and economic perspective, looking at the basic stats, Argentina quite obviously played Switzerland. It wasn't by a huge margin, but they did obviously outplay them. And we can say the final score represents the performance on the field due to this. However, it just barely did that because, as you see, the game went into extra time, and it was a close one. So this gets back to something called the law of large numbers, because the rules in soccer favor the defense. So usually, under normal circumstances, the offense has to really overpower the defense to score. So you can easily have a offense with more skill, and the defense is able to stop them. This is a big mathematical problem with the rules. There's some easy fixes for this that are happening very slowly over a course of centuries, but really these problems should have been fixed in the early 1900s. The law of large numbers basically says the more times you run an experiment, the closer to the average of the results are going to be to the truth, essentially. So a good way to envision this is if you played this game 2 or 3 times a week for a month, Argentina would obviously win on an aggregate, right? So you're basically running the experiment more and more times. When you have rules in a sport that favor the defense, this is preventing the experiment to be ran more times within the allotted 90 minutes. So that's a good way to envision the law of large numbers. So let's get into the economic aspect now. So wealth and population are the biggest factors in determining the potential a country has to be good at anything. Again, I said that it determines the potential. It doesn't determine how good it is. However, the more potential a country is, the easier it is for them to be good at something. So in the US and a few other countries, unfortunately, the school systems are tied to a lot of youth and development sports. And they realized that in the early 1900s, they realized that usually the larger schools were outperforming the smaller schools. So they started classifying the schools in different divisions based on student enrollment in order to give everyone a fair playing field. And so all the schools would be playing other schools in official matches that are relatively the same size. So it's kind of a common sense thing that needed to be done and should have been done in international sports as well, but international sports are still living in the Stone Age with that. Anyway, let's evaluate these countries from that perspective. So Argentina has a lot more population, over 10 times or over 4 times as much, and Switzerland has over 10 times as much. Of course, once you get to a certain number, you're going to have diminishing returns, but yeah, Switzerland has a much better wealth per capita. So we could say, actually, since these two teams are contrasting in opposite ways, that these two teams are actually economically similar in total economic power. So we could actually say that this game is relatively economically legitimate. So with the performance on the field and the score, it's barely legitimate, and with economics, it's probably barely legitimate as well. So we could actually say that I think this is like about the 16th game in the 2026 World Cup that we can say is actually a legitimate sports match.